Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards, because we are the best, and we're not wizards, no matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for March. Because, it's just time's going on so fast at the moment. It's like days and hours and minutes. I don't know if they've removed seconds from the minutes or something like that. It just seems to be kind of trundling along. Don't you think it's just trundling along? So, time is of the essence for a lot of things, but I think for my guest this evening, time is very, very much of the essence, because in approximately kind of like a month from now, by the time this recording goes out, this gentleman will be responsible for potentially staring over, potentially tens and hundreds of entries into the competition, which is going to be closing on the 21st of April. That gentleman is by the name of Chris Anderson, and he is involved in the board game workshop design contest, and he also runs his own podcast, so I feel officially on trial. So, hello Chris.
Hello Richard, thank you for having me.
No, it's I've been looking forward to this actually. We've kind of planned it. It's one of these strange things. It's not been planned that long. It's not like my usual thing where I talk to somebody for like years and then eventually they kind of turn up. It was a relatively kind of quick turnaround process. So I'm kind of, I'm shining my nails on my lapel at the moment. I'm quite kind of pleased with myself for how this kind of turned out. But, this is not about me. This is all about you. So how are you, sir? Are you well?
I am doing well. It's been busy times getting the contest ready and also designing and getting ready for a convention, which I'm leaving for on Thursday morning. So it's been very busy lately.
Is it better? Have you done your ironing then? I mean,
I haven't even done the laundry yet.
You've not done your big wash.
I haven't even finished working on the games that I'm bringing to the convention. So there's a couple weeks left of work to get done tomorrow. So
this is what I mean. There's 57 seconds in a minute now. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way.
That is definitely kind of what happens. We're going to touch on about the competition itself, but before we do that, we need to take a step back because we want to find out a little bit more about your history in the hobby. So we're going to have a look at the kind of the white paper and biro pen of the past. We're going to stare at the prototypes of the present before we look at the final manufactured box version of the future. So do you want to tell us? Just stick with me on this, Chris. Otherwise, you'll get lost. Do you want to tell us how you got into the hobby, good sir?
Sure. So, I've been playing games my entire life. Like growing up, Candyland and Monopoly, probably pretty young. My family always had board games around. I have two younger brothers, so we would always have whatever mass market board game came out, and we played lots of just the weird little kid stuff. My parents would always have a game night with the family, and they would play like Trivial Pursuit and Pictionary. I always wanted to join, but I was too young. When I was finally old enough, they're like, well, we're going to stop having game night, so that's how that goes. But as a kid, me and my brothers played a lot of Monopoly, played a lot of Pictionary, we played a lot of Hero Quest, and a lot of the farming game. And the farming it's a really interesting thing. Imagine Monopoly if it was about farming and way more in-depth and mean. You have to get options to buy a tractor, and if you have a tractor, your neighbor can use it, and you get some money, and you harvest things. It's still in print, apparently, and I think about getting a copy, but I know that it's not going to hold up to the nostalgia of it. Same with Hero Quest, although that's nowhere near as cheap.
Oh, you lie about Hero Quest. You watch your mouth, young man, when you bring in Hero Quest.
My Hero Quest was thrown away, so it's a sore point.
Your Hero Quest was thrown away?
Yeah, we had Hero Quest in the first 2 expansions.
And you threw them away?
I didn't throw them away.
I should really be asking questions.
And he was cleaning up. But that was before I got into the hobby.
I know, but, I should be asking questions about people, to say, before they come on the show, as like a preliminary question, have you ever owned Hero Quest? What happened to that copy of Hero Quest? And then if people say they threw away that copy of Hero Quest, I have to ask them serious questions if I want that person on the show,
I'm very sad it's gone. Actually, that's the first time I found Board Game Geek. That's kind of... So I slowly shifted in the hobby. I started playing Magic in middle school, so like 96. And I played Magic for a long time. And it's kind of board game adjacent. And again, like played Monopoly, played Hero Quest with my brothers. But it was still a slow thing. I started playing Race for the Galaxy with some Magic friends, but I wasn't aware of the hobby. They're like, oh, here's the game. And I knew that games existed. So I would just play with them. I really loved Race for the Galaxy. I never understood the rules. I would win a lot, though. So it was enjoyable. And then it was one day, one of my Magic friends, who I've known for a while, said, oh, you want to come over to this friend's house and play some board games? I was like, sure, sounds like fun. So we played Eclipse. I had never played Eclipse before. I had never played a game anywhere near the level of Eclipse before. I fell in love with Eclipse immediately. The elegance of that game, where the way you move pieces off to increase your taxes and your income, and just the way it gets a massive game, like it is a huge game, into a relatively compact time frame compared to what it is. It's not TI3. But I just fell in love with it there. And I was like, I could probably make something like this. And so I got into the hobby basically that day.
Wow.
And into the hobby of design at the same time. And also I decided, how can I start learning about board games? I'll see if there's any podcasts. And that's when I got addicted to podcasts. So all of that happened like the same week in April 2014. So
your journal must have been full.
It was a very busy month.
Like, just imagine, because most people are like kind of like, well, kind of went swimming, chilled out a bit. It's like, no, I discovered the predetermined future of my entire life that week. It's like, all right, okay.
It's taken over.
What was so wonderful about Eclipse? Because I know of people that can be a bit snobby about it and say, well, it's not, it's not Twilight Imperium. It's like, it doesn't take 11 hours and kind of like, 300 calories to play the game. It's kind of like, I have, so I've heard that kind of thing, but I have heard people that are championing it in the corner, and I know that it came to Kickstarter quite recently in a reprint for Colossal Games, I believe, and it did quite well kind of on that. Did you reback it on Colossal when Colossal released it?
I did not.
Kickstarter?
My friend got the original. The thing is, I'm never going to get it to the table myself. My friend has his copy with the expansions and all the extras, and I'm honestly never going to play without that friend, so there's no point in me backing it, although I really wanted the new version. But I have the app on my iPad, which is a great app. It's a really clean implementation. You can get like a 3-player game against the AI done in half an hour. So I stick to that, but the new version looked great. I really did want it, but I can't justify that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was quite expensive. Was it not well over into $100 or something like that? I seem to remember kind of looking at that, and there was also like a as you get nowadays, like a deluxe version where they kind of gold plate things, and I'm only joking. I'm obviously kidding about that, but there seems to be kind of like deluxe versions of a game where the deluxe version isn't always. It doesn't add an awful lot more to the game, because you can't add an awful lot more to the game with a deluxe version, if you know what I mean. You can only add gold leaf to the figures. You can only kind of upgrade the upgrade the components to resin stuff with diamonds. You can't effectively say, okay, we're going to add in an additional mechanic that changes the game, because otherwise that would effectively kind of ruin your Kickstarter campaign.
Well, yeah, I think the original one, they just did extra. They did extra ships. Like their base game was the boring ships, then you got the good ships if you went on.
Yeah. I mean, friend of the show, Frank West, who did City of Kings, he's a huge fan of Eclipse. And he says, we used to kind of like, we used to get people kind of coming round, and they would have we'd have lunch, and we'd set the game up at like 9 o'clock in the morning. We'd play through. We'd chat, and people would come back, and they would take their turn, and then people would have their lunch, and then they would, the entire game would probably take an entire day to play. But we had kind of like a kind of a good leisurely time, kind of playing on it. So they had kind of like a lot of fun. It's a game I'd be interested in playing again. For me, it's always a little bit of a time commitment. But playing that game, did that sink you down the lines of wanting to design a particular style of game? And was the first games that you were looking to design, was it kind of like Eclipse-like? Were you looking to design something of that elegance and kind of grandeur almost?
So, kind of. There's definitely a massive influence from Eclipse, because I hadn't really played anything else. Like I said, I grew up playing Magic, which Magic has instilled in me a love of very detailed rules that can work at the tournament level. So whenever I'm writing rules, I'm like, I have to cover every single edge case, and it's very time consuming. But the first thing I tried to design, imagine kind of like Risk meets Eclipse, but very, very slow. It was so bad. It was such an absolutely terrible design. I spent a lot of time writing it up and coming up with rules, and there are all different factions, and you could build your buildings and your ships and travel around and have this war. And then I finally, after spending weeks writing the rules and building the prototype, not having tested a single thing yet, I finally get to play it. After 45 minutes of not even running into my opponent because the board was too big and everything moved too slowly, I was like, oh, this is actually really, really bad. And I kind of abandoned that, went to my next design, which was Space Station Disaster, which I released the print and play and got some traction on. Some people printed out and enjoyed it. That's a much lighter, family-friendly, like half-hour tile-laying, card-collecting game, which I would like to get back to and finish. I don't consider it done. But from there, I just got hooked and just keep coming up with game ideas. And like coming up with game ideas is really easy. You can have like 100 a week, but you can't work on 100 a week. So a lot of stuff falls by the wayside, and you work on a project, and then you get sidetracked. And I tend to not finish things, so it's a very busy hobby.
Are you the type of person that if, your workstation is covered in post-it notes, or there is a spiral-bound kind of notepad, which, you have several of them, and depending on what page you flick to, there's kind of like a different kind of... Some of the things are just like a 3-line synopsis of what the game is. The other thing, you've actually drawn out some of the components and what the kind of the board looks like. Is that kind of how you would kind of generally work? Or you?
So I keep it all digital, so it doesn't take up as much physical space. But I started. Originally, I was just keeping notes on my phone, and then when I was on like my third note file with hundreds and hundreds of lines of text, I was like, I should probably organize this in some way that is not just one single long note. So I started using this website called Airtable that does databases online and like saves it in the cloud and stuff, and you can set it up. So I set up a thing on that, so now I throw ideas in there and just usually write down a quick blurb about the idea and a couple tags about like what kind of mechanics or theme it has. And that's great for getting the ideas down. But I almost never have time to go back to them because, like I said, you have 10, 20 ideas a week, and you can't work on any of them because you're still trying to finish the one you had 2 months ago. And then I'll build up anything else, just write up a Word document about it and keep updating that, write out the rules, eventually get to prototyping. I don't like to hand draw or hand write stuff because I'm very bad at writing and drawing, so I'll do basic graphic design on my computer, which probably takes a little longer than hand drawing it, but the ability to replicate it and have like even grids and stuff is just much nicer to me. So, and then step by step.
Yeah. Have you? I mean, do you go for a particular kind of mechanics then, or will you play about with different mechanics? Do you have like an entire section where it's just like worker placement, like deck drafting, set collection? Are you that meticulous and kind of you just draw them down into kind of like different mechanics and when you're kind of doing the design stuff?
I mean, I design from an idea first. So depending on what sparks it, usually it's podcasts. Like I said, I'm addicted to podcasts. I listen to far too many. But so they'll inspire me. Like someone's talking about a game I've played or a game I've never played, and they'll make some comment like, "Oh, I've never seen a deck building pirate game." I'm like, "Oh, a deck building pirate game, that's a thing." And then you have an idea about that. You write down a note. Maybe it turns into something else, and then whatever you write down, then it iterates and iterates and iterates, and before you know it, there's nothing about deck building or pirates, but eventually you have some game. So I'll go all over the place. I like to play pretty much everything as long as it's not tedious. Which that's my big thing is I like elegant games. I think that was the whole thing with Eclipse that grabbed me so much it played so smoothly for what it is. Yes, it's a multi-hour table hog of a game, but it's a smooth multi-hour table hog.
Yeah. Do you then find that what's your view? I mean, do you kind of then, if you're all constantly thinking about ideas for games and you try to constantly develop them, do you then make sure that you're still getting time to actually sit down at the table and play games as often as you can? Or does that get sacrificed a little bit?
Oh, that gets sacrificed a lot. I almost never play published games. I have usually 3 playtest meetups a month. So I'm playing lots of prototypes with my groups, which is great. Yeah. And when I go to conventions, I'll play some published games, but also make a lot of time for playing prototypes with my friends or demoing stuff I'm working on. So I play much more unpublished games than published games, which I keep buying the published games, so that's another thing I gotta try and work on for space and cash limitations, but I have this hope that I'm gonna play those games.
I think you're I don't think you're alone nowadays. I think there's a lot of games coming out all the time, and I wonder about the whole value versus price thing, because there's a lot of games that people are kind of like they're spending $50 on a game, but they're maybe only getting it to the table once, and they're maybe only playing it for like 2 hours. So it's actually cost them $25 an hour to sit down and get to play the game and play that. And I've seen a lot of people recently say, "No, I'm cutting back," or they're not cutting back, or they're going into the cupboard and they're holding on to the games that are important to them for nostalgia reasons because they trigger memories. But they're getting rid of other games that they bought at the time because they felt they had to owe them, otherwise they'd be missing out, kind of thing. And I've seen a lot of people I've seen very popular games ending up kind of on culling lists for people, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for me personally has to do with this hope. Like you see a new game, it looks exciting. You're like, oh, I love that theme, I love that mechanic, I love that art. The designer's a friend of mine. Like, that's great. I love everything about that. I'm going to enjoy that game. And I hope I have time to play it. And you just don't. It shows up, 6 months to a year later, and you're like, oh, right, that game. That's great. I have 400 others that I haven't gotten to yet. And then eventually you run out of shelf space and you start giving away games in your game design contest to try and save space.
Yeah, do you find that the kind of the perceived value of a game is kind of slipped so far down the scale that it doesn't really matter to you if you do end up kind of gifting it to somebody? Or, for myself personally, I have kind of dropped games round at the local kind of, thrift store, kind of charity shop, just because I'm kind of like, well, I could keep it, but I know it's never ever going to probably get played, or I have played it once or twice, and there's a reason that I haven't gone back to it again in 6 months. Whereas there are games that I'm kind of like, well, I'm playing this all the time, but the reason I'm playing it all the time is because it's really kind of grabbed me and it's giving me the impetus to go back and kind of play it again, kind of again and again and again. Do you then find that with you constantly working on games that are play tested, and with you obviously keeping your toe in the hobby, do you ever see kind of like the two kind of mingle in terms of mechanics when people are talking about, if people are talking about root, you're kind of like find that sometimes mechanics from games that you're playtesting, it's like, oh, well, this is just like this game that's come out that's been published. Do you ever find like a cross-pollination between those two things? You're sometimes playtesting something that's kind of currently very, very hot and very, very popular.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of overlap. There's so many games coming out now. It's hard not to hit overlap. I know there was a game I was working on. It was you're grabbing different wooden bits out of a bag, and the whole thing was it was like a speed race to try and like first one to get 5 medium cubes out, and in the bag there's small cubes and large cubes and cylinders, and it's a tactile speed game. And I was designing it for a Game Crafter contest, and then going through and playing it, people were like, oh yeah, this worked really well. I was going to add a theme of like robots on it and try to get pieces. And then I went to Target and we see this game called the Sock Game, which is a bunch of random items in a sock that you have to pull out really fast. I'm like, oh, well, that's already been done. I can stop working on that. So it happens in lots of ways. Like sometimes you see almost your exact idea done faster or better, or sometimes worse, but quicker. So if it's too similar, it doesn't really matter. If you're better, if you're the second one to market, everyone's going to look like, oh, well, you're just kind of doing the same thing. But in the wider way, there's also just finding the right mechanic for a game. Right now I'm working on an auction game called Comic Auction, where people are auctioning off comic books. And I was trying lots of different systems for the auction and the economy. And one of the biggest problems I was having was people needed a way to get more money in the game. Like they were spending all their money on an auction and then just sitting there till the end to score, which, while maybe the right choice, was a really boring choice. So, and then I've been playing the game Neuheimat, which has been recently re-released as The Estates, which, if anyone's familiar with it, has a closed auction where the auctioneer is the one who gets the money, or they can pay the person, the high bidder, for the piece that was auctioned off. So I took that auction mechanic and put it in a comic auction, and it's worked incredibly well because it adds this wonderful tension to every auction where you can be bidding up to try and get someone else to bid higher, or you can be bidding up to get it, or you can be bidding up because you think the auctioneer will pay you for it. So you're like, oh, $5 for that pile of comics. And they're like, no, I don't care. And then you just paid $5 for comics you don't want. So it worked really well with that, and it's smooth and keeps the economy flowing. So even if you run out of money, it's just until your next turn, you're almost guaranteed to get some money.
Do you, with games like that, do you find yourself kind of looking to kind of enter in kind of design contests yourself? I mean, have you entered into, like, say, Cardboard Edison and competitions like that in terms of your designs?
So I used to. I entered Cardboard Edison once. I entered a couple of the Button Shy contests, which actually got something published, and started my relationship with Button Shy, which is a whole other sector of my game design. But then I did some Game Crafter contests, and I was very big into contests for a while, to the point where I was doing so many contests that I couldn't ever work on a game. I would work up 80% of a game for the contest, submit it, it wouldn't win the contest, and then I'd start another game for another contest, and I'd never go back and finish things. So I had a lot of partially finished designs piling up. So I finally, just for scheduling reasons, slowed down, like, okay, I can't be entering all these contests. And then around that time, I started, like, I was more into the industry. I knew more people. So then I started judging contests. So I judged the Button Shy contest last year. I've judged for Cardboard Edison this year. I judged for Boston Festival of Indie Games. And then it was that experience judging that made me think, oh, I could probably host my own contest. That can't be too hard.
Was that the kind of where the entire genesis for the kind of the competition?
So that came around. That was the background idea. How I generally work with a lot of things is I'll think about it for a while. Like, oh, that's a thing I could do in the unnamed future. And then very suddenly, like on the spur of the moment, I'll just do it. Like, same thing happened when I bought a car a couple of years ago. I'm like, oh, I could buy a car, I got some money. And then one day I'm like, I'm just going to go buy a car today. And I just went and bought a car. And then I had a car and all that debt, and now I'm a car owner. But same thing happened with the contest. It was August of last year. So for my podcast, Board Game Workshop, I release an episode every 2 weeks. And then I alternate between roundtable discussions, which are like live guests with me. And then the other ones are contributor episodes where I just have people send in stuff, which the original plan for that was it'd be less work for me. But it turns out that organizing a bunch of contributors is just as hard as getting guests. So, still a lot of work. Yeah. but less talking. But so it was early August. I had an episode that I had to post the next week. I did not have guests. I did not have a topic. So I was like, oh, I could announce the game contest that I had not really planned out at all. So it was from that idea to actually announcing it on the podcast, I think was 1 week. And I had wrote up a blog post about it in between that. So once I wrote the blog post, that's when I committed. I had said to the public, I'm going to have a game contest. So I really had to get the rules out really fast. And I announced it. And then, so that was, I think August 8th was the announcement. Yeah. And then the round 1 submissions were going to be due mid-September. And then I just started asking people if they want to be judges. And surprisingly, people said yes. I think in the end, after getting judges and then judges running out of time and having to back out, I think we ended up with 69 people that actually sent in judge forms and 87 submissions, which I was not expecting 87 submissions. I was thinking 40 would be great. I was offering cash prizes to the finalists because I figured I'm a small podcast. I'm not very well known. I don't know how much of a draw this is going to have, so I should have some cash prizes. It was based a lot on the Cardboard Edison Award as far as being an open contest without any sort of design restrictions. And then just worked on having the contest, and it went surprisingly well. The feedback system worked well. Everyone was very happy with the feedback they got, even in round 1 if they didn't make it to round 2. We did a 3-round system, so what's it? 87 entered round 1. Round 2, we cut to the top 30, which was a mistake. 30 is actually a lot of games to deal with. And then
that's a lot of games
5.
to play.
Yeah, so round 1 is just a 2-minute pitch video. So it's one of my main goals with, like I said, I had judged the other contests, and while they're great contests and they give a lot of great content, as a judge, it was a very big time commitment. You're looking at like watching a 5 to 10 minute video, reading the rules. Maybe they send a print and play that you are expected to look at but not necessarily play. But it takes a good amount of time to judge just one submission. So you need to get a bunch of judges, and each judge needs to commit to doing like 10 or 20 things, and then you have to get more judges on. You're like, okay, we need like 50 more judge forms done in a week, so anyone got some time. And I was like, this is a lot of work for the judges. So my goal, again, being a new contest, I didn't want it to be hard for the judges. So like, I'll do 2 minute videos, and that's it. You got to watch the video, and then I did like a short description just so people know which videos they want to watch. And then you fill out a really short form. It's like rating 1 to 5 and give a couple lines of feedback. And it worked really well. A lot of the entrants felt that the 2 minutes was really tight, and they wanted, just give me 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But the 2 minutes, I think, is really important for letting the judges get through a lot. So for that first year, we ended up having 2 judges, Calvin Wong and Anna Maria Jackson Phelps. They judged all 87 in round 1. Anna Maria actually judged all 87 in round 1, all 29 in round 2, and all 5 in round 3. So she judged every game in every round, which I didn't even get anywhere near that. I think I did 13 the first round and 1 in the second round. But yeah, I think I really streamlined it so it was really easy for judges. And my goal this year is to refine that, so I've made the judging process pretty similar. It's still a 2-minute video, and it takes about 5 minutes to judge an entry. So if anyone is interested in being a judge and you have 5 minutes free from May 1st to June 28th, you can be a judge. That's all it takes. Go to theboardgameworkshop.com and you can find out more. But so it started from me not having an episode ready, and now I'm on year 2 of a massive amount of work organizing this thing. Because my reaction to not being ready to do something is make more work for myself.
It sounds like you kind of announce something and then you realize, oh, I kind of need to do this now, kind of thing.
It's a real incentive, like saying you're going to do something, and then you have to do it because you told people.
What do you do in terms of feedback? Because one of the things that people ask, I guess when people design a game, they get it played with themselves. they play it with their peers, they play it with their family, they take it to the local group, and then they decide, they've got something, so they run it to a competition like yourself. Does it depend the round that they get to? Does that decide the kind of the level of feedback that you give to these people?
So there's 3 rounds, and each round you're going to get more feedback if you continue on. So the first round is the 2-minute video and the short description. So the judges don't have a lot to go on, depending on how you make your video. We had 87 submissions, and they ran the gamut. Some were just a person talking to their phone. Others were like a fully produced, animated, like commercial for the game. Neither of those ended up winning. It was stuff in the middle, because people do dig in, and they're looking for good content. They're looking for interesting things. The way I have the judging set up, it focuses on innovation and elegance. So if you're doing something new and exciting, and you're doing it smoothly, that definitely gives you more points than just like, even if you're doing something that's really well produced, if it's just the same old thing that we've seen 11 times before, it's not going to score as highly. So the scores are based on just strict 1 to 5 ratings in a couple of different categories like innovation and elegance. But the feedback is just an open written feedback from the judge. For round 1, we ask that they give at least 2 sentences of feedback. Some people just give 2 sentences of feedback. Other people write paragraphs and paragraphs. And it also fluctuates how interested they are in the game. We get some judges that see a game that they really think has potential, but they think you have to fix X, Y, and Z. And they'll tell you think you have to fix X, Y, and Z. Or they'll suggest changes to it, or they'll just sing the praises of it and how great it is, and they've wanted this theme forever, and they really hope you produce it. So at the round 1 level, it's pointing out some obvious things. It depends on how well you present your game, how good your feedback is. But I think a lot of it it's good ideas for your game, plus a lot of support. Almost all of the feedback was positive and saying, I really like this, you should keep working on it, or I can't wait to see this. So if nothing else, it's really an ego boost to get that kind of feedback from judges. And a lot of the judges some are publishers, a lot are designers, a lot are reviewers. So I try to get people in the industry, although I don't stick to just big names in the industry. Especially this year, I've opened up judging a lot. So we're up to 138 judges now. 139 if you want to sign up, Richard.
Oh, I will.
So 139
there you
judges.
Go. You've got me recorded saying I'm going to do this.
Like I said, it's only 5 minutes, so it's a good mix of people. But they're all interested in games.
Say we all. Yeah.
So they all have a perspective, and I'm a believer that the truth is in the aggregate. So if you ask one person their opinion of your game, it's going to be their opinion. It's could be really good, could be really bad, but it's not really near the objective truth of it. But if you ask 100 people about your game, and then you average the result, you're getting closer to what your game really is to at least that small subsection of the market. Obviously, we can't have every gamer be a judge. That would be too hard to manage. So my goal is to get a lot of feedback for everyone.
Do you have people coming back that have been, successful, or even kind of in some cases unsuccessful in making you aware that the game's kind of now been picked up by a publisher, or they've gone at Kickstarter? I mean, do you sometimes see games that you've judged that have gone on to kind of like be part of Kickstarter, to be funded on Kickstarter as well?
So far, I have not. So last year was the first year, and we just started in August. So it hasn't even been a full year since the announcement of the first contest. So yeah, I expect to see some moving on. Some are definitely close to finished and looking for Kickstarters or publishers. I know the winner of our contest last year, Calligraphy, is currently a finalist for the Cardboard Edison Award. So that is another step. But yeah, I think a lot of them got really good feedback, and they plan on moving forward with their designs, or they already have. But I haven't heard anything yet about anything going to Kickstarter.
Okay. But as I say, you never know, because, it could be a couple of months down the line. Some people shelf ideas and come back to them kind of, years later and dig it out once they've gone down a different kind of route. In terms of kind of, is there a type of, are the games that you're kind of looking at judge, are they going to be like relatively small? I mean, you mentioned kind of like, Button Shy and things like that. And they generally, even the Cardboard Edison stuff, they generally don't go for, you're not going to find the next Eclipse kind of sitting there. So, but if people were looking at submitting a game, I know they've got like less than a month, but you will get some people that will just go for it. But there's a general guideline that you would give to people who are considering submitting a game to you?
So there's the contest itself. There's two things to consider. There's the official rules, and then there's what is going to work well. So the official rules are any board, dice, dexterity, or card game that is unfinished and hasn't been crowdfunded is welcome to submit. It can be as rough an idea as you're just describing your game to your phone without showing us any components, or it could be a fully done thing that you've had printed up at the Game Crafter or somewhere and it looks really nice and it's ready to go to Kickstarter, although you can't go to Kickstarter during the contest. You have to wait till you're out. So it runs the gamut of quality and stages in design. But it can also run the gamut in size. It could be a micro game. It can be a massive multi-hour space opera. All are welcome, but the contest itself does tend to skew towards lighter games because round one is a 2-minute video. It's not impossible, but more difficult to get across something like Eclipse in a 2-minute video. Although, if you do a really good video, you can do that. But, I mean, if you have a 5-minute dexterity game, you could pretty much show every single aspect of that in a 2-minute video. So it does skew to lighter games. The 5 finalists last year, I think they ranged from like a 30-minute playtime to an hour. So we didn't have anything too big, but it also wasn't anything too quick. And they're like the entries though, we got a ton of stuff. I think the longest game in round 2 had a playtime of 120 minutes. We got a few 90-minute ones, and then a lot of shorter ones. So I think 12 minutes was the shortest, and 120 was the longest that made it into round 2.
Is it for you as a designer, as a kind of somebody who's kind of doing it yourself, I guess, is it exciting to see kind of like the number of designers out there that are kind of trying to find their own path or try to get something kind of made and stuff like that? Does that fill you with a lot of optimism for where the kind of the industry is going?
Yes, I enjoy design. I think at this point I enjoy design more than published games to a degree. Like I said, I don't have time to really play published games, but just the act of playing unpublished games with designers and giving feedback and being able to help the growth of a project, it's a really nice place to be. Like being able to give that feedback as opposed to just playing a game, like, oh, I liked it, I didn't like it, but regardless, it's done. So it's nice to be in that part. It's nice to see, especially new designers coming in with their first idea. We actually, for the finalists last year, 2 of the games were first-time designs, and they made it that far, and they're well done. It was really exciting for them, and getting that sort of feedback on their first project is hopefully going to keep them designing for years. Actually, almost all the finalists came back this year as judges, and then we had a bunch of judges from last year who are not judging because they're entering games. So we had a lot of crossover there because they enjoyed the process so much, which I think is a good sign. But I really like the design community. It's people always say that the board game community is very friendly. I'd say the design community is an even friendlier subsection of that, because not only are you building a community and playing games, but by its very nature, you are helping each other, like to a very deep level. So I think it builds very friendly, very helpful communities in game design, and it's great to be a part of it. And
I mean, one of the things I saw on social media recently was they were talking about I think it was the Cardboard Edison kind of contest, and they were talking about kind of like they were talking about lack of kind of diversity in the entries. Do you think there's anything that can be done by that at all? I mean, do you think you can you can get it to the point where everything is, everybody is represented, or everybody that wants to kind of enter should enter. I mean, do you think that? I mean, that seems to have become. I mean, everybody wants everybody to get involved in the hobby, and that's a fact. The more people that are involved in the hobby, the better. The more people that come from different backgrounds mean we get more and more different kind of games and different kind of viewpoints. But do you think it can be such a clear-cut case of let's encourage people in? Can you do, or will people just, people who are going to design, are they going to design? And I'm not obviously trying to put words in your mouth or anything like that, but I'm just wondering how you feel about that.
No, I was actually just talking about this with someone yesterday, because he brought up the fact that, there was the talk about the Cardboard Edison Award, which I was reading that, but he was looking at my list of judges, and he was like, I noticed that you're only about 25% female and not many people of color, which is true, and it's something I want to work on, but it's difficult for multiple reasons. As was brought up in the conversation about the Cardboard Edison Award, there are different social and financial limitations to being in this hobby. It is a hobby that involves disposable time and income, which predominantly is not something available to a lot of women and people of color for a variety of socioeconomic reasons. And that is a very difficult thing to overcome, and something that should be overcome, but that is not a simple answer. But so I think that is one of the issues at play here, and then you're shrinking the demographics that are in board gaming as a whole, and a subsection of those are going to go on to design, and a subsection of those are going to go on to be involved in a contest. So you're constantly making these cuts, and at each level, you're losing certain groups of people that can't be involved for various reasons. I think getting more marginalized people to enter contests, I think one way to help that is to have them better represented in the judge pool, which again it's not the easiest thing to do. So like I was saying, my judge pool currently is only 25% female, but it's 38 female presenting judges instead of, I think Cardboard Edison had about 8, because I think Cardboard Edison had less than 50 judges this year, or less than 60. But I'm up to 138 judges. So percentage-wise, it's not looking great. But overall numbers, there are a lot more women judging because there are a lot more people.
Yeah.
But I think one way I'm trying to make it easier for people to judge, and thus get representation so that it's more interesting for people to enter, is by making the judging process as easy as possible. Like I said, time commitment is a really hard thing for a lot of people, especially if maybe you don't have a lot of free time to put into game design or judging. So it really does only take about 5 minutes to judge one entry. And if you can judge one entry, you're a judge. That's all it takes. Obviously, we need to average judging more than one entry each if we want to get everything done. So I'm very happy for some judges like Anna Maria and Calvin, who are going to try and judge every game this year too. Although if we get too many, they might not make it. So we get a mix of the people that have the time to put in a lot of work on it, and people that just want to put in a little work. But even that little amount of work is that person being represented and showing that other people like them can do it. So I really encourage anyone who is interested in judging or entering to look into the contest. I try to make it as easy as possible. There's a $5 entry fee, which I'm happy to waive if that's an issue for anyone, because this contest is not in any way about making the money. The money is just there to kind of keep the lights on for the website and organize things and stop people from just throwing a bunch of crap in, because if it's free to enter, some people just want to throw in 100 games.
No, absolutely. No, I'm not trying to put you on blast or anything, Chris. I know it's a difficult subject to kind of tackle, and you can't expect, one person running, one competition when there's so many other kind of competitions out there.
Right, but
to be able to wave a magic wand, Yeah, absolutely.
So that brings up the other thought I have in this subject, which, again, I'm a white guy, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think that better outreach for marginalized communities comes from people within that community. I am not directly connected to these communities, so I only have so much of a reach. So I think people inside those communities that are interested need to reach out to those communities and help from the inside.
Yeah. No, it's as I say, it's a complicated question, and there's no kind of one kind of direct answer. In terms of the competition, kind of going forward and kind of expanding it, are you just kind of naturally, kind of organically, kind of just going to let it kind of grow as it is? Are you considering different ways of expanding the competition to have them kind of focused maybe on like judging a bigger kind of box game and having them off to one side, kind of allowing people to maybe who are thinking, because I think you're right. I mean, there are kind of like your Button Shies and your Cardboard Edisons of this world, and as you say, even your own games, the own competition, you end up kind of concentrating on the smaller games just by, sometimes by default because of how easy it is to explain to them. Have you thought about kind of like saying, well, let's run the really big, silly, huge, big box competition of fun, and I'm copywriting that before you steal it, just in case you consider doing that?
Well, for this year, one thing I was toying with, which I didn't implement, but perhaps next year, was so I want to keep it as an open contest where all different types of games are competing. But I was thinking of when people submit their game, checking off a couple of categories, possibly by weight or time or mechanics, and just have some sort of categorization when they enter. And then round 1, everyone would be judged as normal. But for getting into round 2, it would be the highest rated 2-hour game, the highest rated medium weight game, the highest rated dice game, plus the top 15 or top 20 total to fill out round 2. So even if, say, you were 50th place, if you're the best dice game, you automatically get onto round 2, which then in round 2 it's a deeper judging. We look at rules and how to play videos, so you can get across your game better. And I think that might help games that do struggle with the 2-minute video, which is especially longer games or more complex games where it's hard to get things across. So that's a possibility I might implement next year.
You probably will. You've already said you're fairly impulsive. I'm surprised you're not going to you're not going to get off this kind of episode and just jump onto Twitter and say, guys, I've had an epiphany.
I mean, I was so close to doing it this year. Like, I was writing up the categories, but
do it.
It comes down to the difficulty of, like, how do you really categorize your game? Like, especially by weight, which I think organizing by weight would be the best way to do this. But how do you is your game a 3 or a 4? How do you know? I mean,
Chris,
Board Game Geek has a thing. It's too late to do it this
Twitter
year.
Just now. Just announce it. Come on. Just do it. Just announce it. And you can deal with it later on.
It's too late. I already put out the forms. Submissions are already open.
I know, but you can add something. You can you run the thing. You
if
can
I
put
add something, it messes up the spreadsheet. I can't do it.
You just add a lilac column. There's always a lilac column in a spreadsheet. It's all fine.
Nah, I almost definitely will next year, I think, because it really, like, that really is an issue.
Yeah,
like, certain games just fall out.
And if you call it if you do end up calling it kind of like the Board Game Workshop Big Box Board Game of Fun competition, I'll hunt you down. I'm just saying. Yeah. You're asking me to be a judge. I said yes. I'm saying if you nick this idea for this thing,
we'll work out a licensing agreement. It'll be fine.
That'll be fine. Yeah, you can. I want my own column on the spreadsheet. That's all I'm saying. If people are interested in kind of like getting involved, taking part, submitting an entry, how do they do it? Where can we find you on the internet webs? Mr. Anderson. I sound like the Matrix, isn't it?
See, you're old enough to get that. I don't get that joke anymore. I used to a lot 15 years ago. Now, no, I work at a high school. None of the kids have ever even seen the Matrix. But
You have to sit them down and make them watch this. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then, obviously, it's for your own kind of, I guess, self-fulfilling, hurtful prophecy that then nothing all you'll get all day is, hello, Mr. Anderson. That's all you'll get from now on.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I love The Matrix, so it's not an insult at all.
Point.
but yeah, so go to theboardgameworkshop.com. There's a giant picture right on the front page. It says the contest. Click on that. It has all the information about judging and submitting. There's even practice judging. So if you're interested in being a judge, but you don't know if you can handle it, you can go and actually judge the 5 finalists from last year, just as you would any game this year. Or if you're interested in submitting and you want to see what judges are going to do with your game, you can go through the practice judging. One thing I'm trying to do with this is be very transparent. So all of the information for judging and submitting are all public for anyone to see. So if you're submitting and you want to know how it's going to be judged, just look at the judge page. It's all there. To be a judge, just have to fill out a form, and then I put you up on the website, and you can have your picture listed with the 138 other wonderful judges we have so far, possibly more because I get a couple signing up every day. Submissions are due April 21st by end of day, so make sure you get it in there. It's a $5 entry fee. I'm very active on Twitter, so you can find the podcast at the BG Workshop, and you can find me personally at BlueCubeBGS, and then also you can find my blog, BlueCubeBoardGames.com, and I write that every Friday.
Cool. What we'll do is we'll take those links and we'll put them in the show notes so that we've got notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the internet, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and our website, we'renotwizards.com, and our blog, we'renotwizards.blogspot.com. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com. Yes, I am aware of the irony of the email address. That's why I chose it. You can find us on Instagram, and we're on these podcast places like Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife and Podbean and CastPod and Podcast and whatever else. Anything that's got the name Pod and anything's got the name Cast in it. And we're also on Spotify, and Google Podcasts as well. If you like what you've listened tonight, there's 2 things you can do. Tell somebody else. That's nice. Recommend us. It's always lovely. And the second thing you can do is you can go to Apple Podcasts and you can give us a subscription, because that makes sure that all the baby foxes are okay, kind of. And the other thing you can do is you can give us a rating or a review. I'm not threatening baby foxes, I like to point that out. It just came off the top of my head. I've no idea where it came from. Don't at me. You can go and give us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars because it makes me big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it makes me cry. And I'm getting older, and the older I get, the uglier I cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who has not been average tonight is a rather wonderful, rather fantastic, the competition running, board game idea designing man that is Mr. Chris Anderson.
Thank you very much. It's so weird to listen to you in real time because I listen to podcasts at triple speed.
It must be. But I can talk really fast if you want to. There's only 2 more things to do. Just mess this up for you. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing to say, remember that we are many things when always are we wizards, Chris?
Never once.
Fantastic. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So I could slow it down so it's their next thing is to say goodbye, Chris. Say goodbye, Chris.
Goodbye. That'll sound normal to me when I listen to this.
That'll be fantastic. And and it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and you got time, if you've got that bit of cardboard, that collection of cardboard sitting there, and you're thinking about, what, I should really do something with this. And you've got a phone, and you can make a little video, and you can make it for 2 minutes. Then you can get in contact with Chris, and you can enter into the competition, and you never know unless you try. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.